What is up, everyone? Today on this video, we're going to be talking about why 90% of Shopify brands fail and what the 10% that don't do to scale. This is behind the scenes at multiple agencies, behind multiple big corporations, big brands, how they do their campaigns. And this is exactly what we see time in and time out. And I will tell you this right now, there is no one way. It's just the best way for you and your brand. But we're going to dive into some of the mistakes that they do make and things that you can do to improve them. And more importantly, your approach to going through this. The first mistake that Shopify brands make is trying to sell to an unaware audience. And what this means is that your brand has no type of brand awareness, no type of brand affinity, no education. No one really knows anything about your product, and you're immediately trying to send them to a sales ad to buy your product. You're basically just saying, hey, you don't know me, but buy my product. Now, how would you think if someone came up to you that was a salesman that just said, hey, buy our product? They didn't give you any context, any reason, anything else. They didn't even try to sell you. They literally just put the product in front of you and said, buy this. What would you do? What would be the first question that you would ask? You would probably want to get to know them. You would probably want to get to know the brand, the product, what it does. If they're just straight up asking you for money, you don't even know what the value of it is to you. It has to be conveyed. The point of all this is that value has to be conveyed to the consumer. And it doesn't just go from someone never seeing your brand before to them instantly buying from you. And I get it. Everyone knows this, okay? I think generally everyone knows that you need multiple touch points to sell someone, right? But a lot of people don't know exactly what that looks like within a campaign. So if you're taking this from just a sales campaign, let's say the only campaign that you're running is an ASC campaign on Meta. It's just a sales objective campaign. You're only going for purchases. You're doing nothing else. But within that, you can have creatives that give context around your product that can take people from prospecting, unaware, prospect them, to then bring them into being a buyer. And what does this look like from a creative standpoint? This is educational type creatives. So this can even be influencers, UGC. It could be listing benefits, before and after, product benefits, comparisons, comparing your product to the competition. Just anything to give context around what your product actually does. Its use case. A ton of different things is basically just building out the story and the context around your product. And you could do this within one campaign. Now, I will say, if you're doing this within one campaign, you're going to want to look at one of the mistakes that's coming later in this video, because then you're talking about each ad actually serving its own purpose. And if you're going to go and shut off some of those ads, you really want to make sure that you're optimizing it the right way and that you're looking at it in the right way. We'll get more into that. But mistake number one is trying to sell to an unaware audience. You can't just take someone who knows nothing about you to become a buyer. The only businesses that can really do this is when there's an immediate need for something that comes up and the person doesn't care who the hell they're buying from. They just need the product. Take, for example, I'm allergic to milk. I need an EpiPen. I guess EpiPen's a brand, not a best example, but I just know that if I go into anaphylactic shock, I need something that's going to just get me out of that. So the brand doesn't matter to me. It's just the outcome. And that's another thing that's important to remember with your products, is that you have to be outcome focused. So you have to sell to the outcome that people want. But that's not really the purpose of this video. It's more so just to show you that it's really difficult, and it will show in your cost per purchase. And I see this on Reddit all the time, especially on Reddit. But I see this all the time of people saying, why am I getting no purchases? Why are my results? Well, there's a ton of reasons why that could be. But one of them is probably because you're trying to take people who are unaware to become a buyer immediately. It just doesn't work like that. It's really, really difficult. You might get lucky for some things, but over the long term at scale, it does not work. And you need a process. Even if that's within one campaign, you need a process for taking people from aware to becoming a buyer. And the education, the brand engagement, the multiple touch points that need to happen within that. And I've talked in other videos too, so I won't go too much into this. But basically the funnel, you could think of it as not just a funnel. It's not A, B, C. It's really unaware. It's like a circle kind of. It's unaware on the very outside, to, once they're within that circle and they're aware of your brand, it's engagement points of engagement, getting them to become familiar with you, your brand, your product. And then in the very center there is something happens within those engagement points for them to become a buyer. And then they go back outside and brand engagement and they're within that circle again until they become a buyer again. So that's kind of how you should be thinking about it, is from points of engagement, product education, getting them to become fond of your brand and actually getting them to know your brand and your product and its use case. So you want to just think, you want people recommending your product and you want them pushing it out there. So you don't want to just be selling for someone to make a purchase. You want to be selling to someone who needs an outcome and wants an outcome and then wants to recommend that outcome of your business to other people as well. And that's how you will get really good ads, really good products, really good outcomes. All right. Mistake number 2 is large variation in product prices. Now, basically what this means is that if you have a range of products, so if you have one product that's priced at $25, then you have another product that's priced at $130, then you have another one that's priced at $250, and you throw them all into a campaign, 9 times out of 10, the platform algorithms are going to optimize to the lowest cost item. Over time, you will see this absolutely. In most cases, if you're just on max volume for your settings, it's not optimizing to the highest ROAS, the highest ROI, or the highest margin product. It's optimizing to whatever it can get the lowest cost from, the lowest cost per purchase from. So this is something that you have to think, A, in terms of your strategy for actually setting up your campaigns, but B, in terms of segmentation and how you're actually separating your campaigns. Okay? So mistake number 2, within that, they're also expecting to generate sales on all products within one campaign at different price points. That's what I just went over. The lowest price item will likely be easier to sell, which doesn't mean the highest ROAS. It just means the lowest cost per purchase. And then the best way might be to segment products based on price range or by margin, depending on how close their average order value or their average cart value is, or the average price of the product is to each other. So an example of this might be range A. So you might have multiple products within the $20 to $100 range. That would be in campaign A. Then you have products in the $100 to $200 range. That would be a campaign B. And then $200, $500 range would be in campaign C. This is just a totally random example. Or what you can do if you have a core product and that is the focus of your marketing strategy, you only have one product to focus on. You don't have to focus on multiple products, but you have it set up so that someone buys your core product, kind of like an iPhone. Someone buys your core product, and then you have a ton of different products that come after that as upsells. So then your focus is selling core product A, your main product, and all your focus is there. But then you have upsell sequences after that. So these might be through text, email. It might be even through different segmented campaigns on different platforms, or even just their own campaigns just with lower budgets because you're only retargeting people then. Whatever the case is, you have an upsell plan, but your focus is really on getting people to buy that one product in that one campaign. But for this, we're going to just be talking about segmenting by price point. So coming over here, what that could look like from just a setup point of view is you might have product category. I'm calling this product category the same as the price range of your products, just thinking that they're in the same category. They're probably priced around the same. Okay, so like, for example, this could be like t-shirts, shorts in product category B, or like accessories in product category C. So what that could look like is you have separate campaigns set up for product category A, B, and C, all within their own campaigns with their own creatives, their own dedicated kind of strategies. And then you have your overall marketing budget, and you split that budget up and you prioritize it based on the profitability, the ROAS of the different product categories that they're showing, performance, or priority. If it's something you're prioritizing at different points of the year, you can shift your budget accordingly. But now each campaign is focusing on optimizing within that product category. So if product category A has t-shirts that are priced between $20 and $50, it's optimizing to the lowest cost per purchase on max volume again, within that $20 to $50 price range. You're much more likely to actually be optimizing to the most performant or the highest performance product within that. And then you can compare that to category B, which will be doing the same thing, and category C, which will be doing also the same thing. And now you can really look at the ROAS generated from these products. Is it the highest ROAS generating product, or is it just the lowest cost per purchase? Lowest cost per purchase won't always mean the highest ROAS. So that's why you could split it up this way, because then it gives you the flexibility to then split your budget up accordingly. And that's just one of the overall just kind of strategies that you could take when you do have multiple products and you have sufficient budget to support multiple products. So now coming over to mistake number 3. Mistake number 3 is attribution. And this comes from a lot of people just not really understanding what they're looking at with attribution. I mean, hypothetically, it makes sense, right? Like if you're looking at attribution from, it's just a time frame, it's just a time window of when this conversion is taking place that it's looking at, it makes a lot of sense, right? So if you're looking at attribution from, okay, this conversion occurred from a 1-day click standpoint versus this was a 1-day view, this conversion that came through, or this one was a 7-day click. So from someone clicking now and then buying 7 days later, it could have been other things or a lot of other things that influenced along the way that got that end purchase. If it was just view, then it could have been something completely different that really drove that end purchase. They could have just seen the ad and then been influenced by a multitude of other things before actually purchasing. So what you want to look, and if someone's clicking on the ad and actually clicking into the landing page, that is, they're actually taking action on that ad, and that's a little bit higher beta, higher value to be looking at that, because if they're getting a 1-day click conversion, that most likely your product, that landing page, was the last place they went to be making that conversion. And that shows the direct response rate, the direct response ability of your ad then, because they're immediately clicking on the ad and buying. And that is something different to look at than when it's maybe more so serving purpose of prospecting, which could also be looking at from a view standpoint or even like a 28-day click standpoint. But just to be thinking about this in terms of the time frame that these conversions are taking place, that is your attribution window. And then also the action that's tied to that. So view, just seeing the ad, click, they're actually clicking into the ad. That's your click versus view attribution window. So you want to look at, you don't want to take any of these numbers at face value pretty much. Let me backtrack. You don't want to take any of these platform numbers at face value. So just when you look in the platform and the number that it shows, you always want to dig a little bit deeper to try to see what's really going on. Are you about to cut an ad that actually is serving more as a prospecting ad within your purchase campaign? Or is it really just underperforming? Or another ad that's overperforming, is it overperforming because of view attribution? Or is it overperforming because of click attribution? Now compare the cost per 1-day click attribution conversions, and then start to see what's the direct responsibility of your ads. And you can start comparing the metrics that way and seeing, is this really something I should cut? Is this ad really performing how well the platform's displaying that it is? Now, if you have also attribution across multiple channels, then this is kind of a similar method you could be taking, but also you're looking at this now combined across multiple platforms. All that to say, let's just assume that you're only looking in like Meta right now. You're kind of just looking at the attribution windows accordingly. Now, then you have incremental attribution. This is a new one for Meta, but this is good to look at because it's modeling based on if that conversion would have taken place without your ads or not. That's incremental attribution. And this is important to look at too, even if it is modeled. You know, their modeling is relatively good, but so don't take it at like 100% value, but it is informative because it's modeling it based on, would this conversion have happened without your ads running? So it's just an important other angle that you could be looking at. And then another one is new versus existing customers. So looking at, you should 100% make sure you define your existing customers versus engaged customers or engaged prospects. Make sure you're doing this in your ad account settings. Really important. That's how you'll be able to see these breakdowns. So new versus existing customers. Are your conversions mainly coming, are you a bigger brand? Maybe they're coming from existing customers, or are they coming all from new customers? So what you'll see with a lot of smaller brands is because they don't have that big customer base, that a lot of their conversions will come from new customers. Well, going back to our conversation of looking at unaware to trying to become a buyer, it's more costly to put people through that journey, right? So you're going to have on average a higher cost, potentially lower ROAS tied to that for trying to only be getting new customers versus existing ones, typically lower cost because they're a warmer audience. They know your brand. It will cost a little less to get the purchase out of them as over time as a whole. And therefore, you would have a higher ROAS on your existing customers. But if you don't have a large existing customer base, now you have to balance out these results versus your industry to see how you're actually performing. Because if you're just looking at your ad account and you're like, well, I have a ROAS of 3, but it's majority from new customers. Well, that says a lot more than a bigger brand that has a ROAS of 4, but a majority of their conversions are coming from existing customers. So that's just all the things that you should be looking at within attribution. Then another thing, just some questions to be asking as you're looking through this process is what ads are driving one-day click? What ads are driving new customers? What ads resonate with existing customers? Are you paying to acquire new, or is existing customer retargeting what's driving down CPAs, cost per purchase, in other words? So as I said, smaller brands have generally a higher cost per purchase because they are majority new customers versus larger brands can leverage a big pool of existing customers, which therefore makes it cheaper. So in this case, what you can do is you can look at NCAC when comparing versus your industry. NCAC is cost to acquire a new customer, a net new customer. So this is a little bit more of a level playing field because your cost to acquire a new customer for a smaller brand versus a larger brand might be relatively similar. So that could be a good metric then to be looking at. The only thing is you just have to get that data for your industry, which you can look up most industries for CAC and then NCAC too. So that might be a little bit more of a level playing field, just looking at how much it costs to acquire a net new customer versus your competition to see how you're really doing. But this all goes into attribution. And the last big point is over-reliance on last click attribution, which is right here. Over-reliance on last click. Using last click attribution as your Bible and not understanding your customer journey or blended ROAS metrics. Customer journey is just from when they first see your ad or they first become aware of your brand. What is their journey to purchase? What platforms are they seeing your ads on? What actions are they taking? What are they doing? And where are they seeing your ads? What is the journey? And then what's driving that end purchase? But all the platforms along the way are important, and the types of ads they're seeing, how they're being influenced, that's all important, the journey along the way. And then blended ROAS metric is basically you have your standard ROAS, which would be by campaigns that are actually optimizing to purchase because they're targeting ROAS, they're targeting returns or targeting purchases. But then you have blended ROAS. Blended ROAS is your return on ad spend across all your objectives. And you could take this one step further and go across all platforms and all objectives to get a blended ROAS across everything that you're doing for marketing. So you could look at this on a lot of different levels. You could look at this on just the ad account level that you're in right now. You could look at this across all of paid social, so just your social media advertising. You could look at this over your social plus search. You get what I'm saying. The list goes on. You could look at this across all your advertising efforts. So understanding your blended ROAS metrics at all the different levels will also help a lot. Okay. So now mistake number 4. And this one really gets me. Statistical significance. Weighing the significance of performance. So performance with a low volume of results is not the same as performance with a high volume of results. Can it be an indicator? Absolutely. But is it equal? No. Okay. And then 2 is budgeting enough to get significant results and allow for improvement. So you have to weigh if the results you're looking at are actually significant to be making a decision off of them. And then you have to budget enough to get significant results to allow for the improvement. So if you're actually following the 50 conversions in 7-day window minimum, and then kind of backtracking what your estimated cost for the result would be from there, and then backtracking that into how much you should actually be spending at a floor level for that campaign or for that objective, that would give you, and then adding a buffer on top of that, that would give you sufficient results, hypothetically, as long as you stay within that CPA that you're estimating. That is one good thing to be doing. But if you're not doing that and you're just kind of allocating budget to a campaign and it's not enough, you might be able to get away with getting good results from that, but it's a lot less likely. And I've been seeing this even more over the course of the last 2 years, essentially. But I think this is becoming a lot more important with the way and the direction that platform algorithms are going, because they're becoming much more reliant on the quality of the data and the data that they're taking in from your ad account. So they're looking at building out the ideal profile of your buyer for people who are making a purchase. And you need significant data, sufficient data, to actually be letting it do its thing and actually letting it be effective. Okay? So that's also where volume comes in. You need significant results. You got to always think in terms of statistical significance. And the same with when you're comparing the difference between two results. You also want to look at statistical significance. So is the percentage difference large enough? So not only is the volume adequate of the data that you're looking at, but also is the difference between the results that you're looking at sufficient and significant. Okay. Now there's also correlations. We get into correlations from this as well. So just some example correlations that I want to get into of how these things can work, because you have your CPM, rate metrics, volume, and cost per result. Those are the core four, what I could say, sectors of your ad metrics or metrics in general to be looking at, because these all have relations. And then how one is behaving could show you the ones that you really want to look at. So just to walk through, if you have a CPM that's increasing, generally your rate metrics increase from that too. So that means that your click-through rate could also increase. So one question that you could look at here is your CTR increasing because your CPM is going up, or is it increasing because it's actually the performance of the ad or of the audience that you're targeting, something within that? Okay, is that actually improving, or is it just due to the CPM rising? Because generally you will see a correlation between the two. And then same on the other end too. CPM goes down, rate metrics generally also go down as well. Again, these are generalizations. Like, this is just over the course, the total course of everything at large that you're looking at. But then what would you want to look at if CPM's up, rate metrics are up? Now you would want to turn to volume, and cost per result would be your guiding light, because your cost per result is really what you care about in the end, is how efficient are you? So, and then your volume is kind of justifying that. So how significant is that cost per result? And is that CPM, and is that rate metric that you're looking at, right? So volume is kind of like justifying everything else and showing you the significance, but cost per result is what you would kind of want to look at to say, how efficient am I being, right? So that's one example of how everything is correlated. Now, on another end, volume. But if volume is the key thing that you're looking at. So typically as volume goes up, rate metrics generally go down and cost per result generally goes up. This is because of market saturation. This is because the ad accounts generally go after the lowest hanging fruit, essentially, that it knows of. So once it gets past those lowest hanging fruit, now it actually has to prospect and put in the work to prospect new people. So as that happens, generally your rate metrics go down and your cost per result increases a bit. Now, what you want to look at from here is how much is your cost per result increasing and how much is your rate metrics going down, but more so heavily weighted on cost per result. So if volume's going up, how much is your cost per result changing? And if volume's going up and your cost per result's going down, well, now you have a really efficient campaign there. And that is something that you would want to be shifting even more into. And that would be an amazing indicator for how your campaign is doing. But also keep in mind at the start, generally, when you're starting off a new campaign and you don't have a lot of data to go off of, as volume does go up, that cost per result could go down as well. So again, that's also speaking to volume being the justifier there. Now, I know that this is all can be extremely technical. If you're not, then hit me up on the side. I definitely would love to talk more about this. But I just want to give just a brief overview of all this, just so you can see how it kind of works with some of the correlations and how you can interpret the data. Because if you're looking at, and I hope you can see that if you're only looking at one point, any of these 4 points at any one time, you're missing the bigger picture. So you have to look at all of these and how they interact with each other to be seeing the bigger picture of that. Okay? So last but not least is brands having no system. Smart brands have a system for scaling. They know their metrics, how much they can spend profitably, and they have a system for adding, removing, or shifting budget. You just need to have a system, not necessarily a plan. It's good to have a plan, but you have to be able to adapt that plan as you get real results and see how things are responding in real time. So if you are making a plan and you haven't ever done these types of campaigns before, or you haven't ever ran ads for your brand before, or you don't have a lot of data, and say you're 10xing your spend because you just got an investment, and you haven't done things at the level that you're doing them at before, you can't just make a plan and expect everything to go according to that plan. There's a difference between plan and action, and actually being able to adapt that plan based on what's happening in real time. There's estimated results and there's the real results, and you have to be able to adapt to those real results and have the best path forward. And that's where comparing to your industry, comparing to competition, all could go into play there. But you have to know your key metrics. You have to have qualifiers. You have to have a plan for actually increasing spend and have criteria that you want to be hitting, some form of that. And you want to know, what does a good ad look like? When is it time to be putting significantly more money into an objective in an ad versus when is it time to be taking away from that? What are the things that you want to be looking at? And I hope that a lot of what I talked about gave a good backbone for that, because just off the metrics and the relationships alone that I was talking about can give you a lot of that information. But now you have to set things like, what is an adequate amount of spend to be making a decision? And that kind of goes to the volume standpoint. But if you're not getting the volume, then what's an adequate amount of spend to make a decision then? So just having kind of criteria like that, or how long has it been in market? How long has the ad actually been out before you're making a decision? So all of these things, you basically just want to build a system that makes sense and be willing to adapt that system in real time as you get real results. So you have to just know what's best, and then be able to make decisions based on those estimations and everything there. All right. And that's it for this one. If you're a brand and you're just starting your Shopify brand, but if you're just starting out, or you're just starting out with scaling your paid social operation, so you're just starting off with going deeper into social media ads, maybe you are a medium or larger brand and you're actually just building out a social presence now, or you want to take it more serious, this is exactly what I do. I hope I've demonstrated some of that in this video, but if you would like to talk more about how this could specifically apply to your brand and exactly what we can do, let's make a plan, book a call. The link is below. Book a call with me and we can sit down, go over everything that you're doing right now, go over what you could be doing better, and get some projections on how we can be working together and what you should be doing for your brand. Basically, how we can actually create a plan for scaling up. But I hope all that was helpful. I really appreciate you watching this far. For those of you who have, thank you. Please subscribe to my channel. There's so many more videos coming. I have a ton of other topics that I'm going to be talking about and things I'm going to be doing. Like, comment, subscribe, share this with someone. If you found it useful, share it with the group chat. Many more videos coming, and I will see you on the next one. Thank you.